Hello again. If you've ever driven through the deserted highways of the American Midwest late at night, you surely understand how profound loneliness feels. Streetlights are sparse, the white lane lines drag on endlessly beneath your tires, and you are completely surrounded by absolute darkness. In moments like those, a small rest stop glowing with warm light feels like a total lifesaver. But I have a sincere piece of advice for you. If you ever spot an old, worn-out gas station tucked away behind a row of ancient pine trees, with no glowing neon sign, just a weathered wooden board reading "Open 24/7" in peeling paint, do yourself a favor. Step on the gas and keep driving. Do not stop.
My name is Ethan. 3 years ago, desperate to cover my rent and unpaid tuition fees, I took a night shift job at an isolated gas station just like that. My shift ran from midnight until 6 in the morning. The owner, a gaunt, elderly man named Miller, with cloudy, milky eyes that never met yours when he spoke, laid down just 3 simple rules when I was hired. Rule number 1, absolutely never step outside the main store after 2 a.m., no matter what noises you hear outside. Rule number 2, if a customer walks in to buy something, never ask for their name and never look at their transaction receipt. And rule number 3, the most crucial one of all, the storage room behind the cash register has no lock. If it ever drifts open on its own during the night, your only option is to pull down the main security shutter, turn off every single light in the building, and crawl under the desk until dawn. Back then, I just chuckled, figuring it was nothing more than an eccentric old man's quirky way of psyching out the new hire. Little did I know that barely a week into the job, those seemingly absurd rules would become the only fragile barrier keeping me tethered to the land of the living. My first week passed by relatively peacefully. The station sat at a blind curve along Highway 40, seeing almost zero traffic at night. Occasionally, a long-haul trucker would pull in to grab a cup of instant coffee or a bottle of water. I usually spent the quiet hours reading books or scrolling through my phone to pass the time. Until a Thursday night when the wall clock struck exactly 1:15 a.m.
Outside, a torrential downpour suddenly lashed down, accompanied by flashes of lightning tearing across the pitch-black sky. The store doorbell rang out, that familiar ding-dong chime turning deeply unsettling in the absolute stillness. A figure stepped inside. It was a man wearing a worn leather jacket with the hood pulled deep over his head, casting half his face in shadow. Water dripped steadily from his soaked hair and jacket onto the floor, forming small puddles. Strangely enough, despite the freezing, stormy weather outside, this man radiated an intense, bone-chilling cold, as if he had just stepped straight out of an industrial freezer.
He didn't say a word, shuffling straight toward the aisle, selling dusty souvenirs and old miscellaneous items in the back corner. Standing behind the cash register, I smiled out of sheer retail habit. "Good evening. Do you need help finding anything?"
The man froze for a fraction of a second. Slowly, he turned his head toward me. Beneath the shadowed brim of his hood, all I could see was darkness, save for his chin and the corners of his mouth. His skin looked bruised, pale, and deeply wrinkled, like flesh that had soaked in water for too long. Instead of answering, he placed an object onto the counter. It was an antique brass pocket watch, its casing etched with intricate patterns that had been corroded by a thick layer of dark brown rust. The hands were permanently frozen at 3:15. He pushed the watch slightly toward me, his voice scraping out like fingernails dragging across rotted wood.
"Trade you for a pack of cigarettes?" And an answer. I stared at him, stunned. Since when did this gas station double as a pawn shop? I was about to refuse, but my eyes remained glued to the watch. For some inexplicable reason, a bizarre energy radiated from the object, pulling at my mind so strongly I couldn't look away. It felt as though someone was whispering right into my ear, "Take it. It's a gift of salvation." Reaching out, I grabbed a pack of cigarettes from the shelf, placed it on the counter, and asked, "What do you want to know?" The man slowly stretched out a gray, withered hand to grab the pack. His fingers were abnormally long, tipped with yellowish nails. Leaning close to the glass partition of the register, his breath carried a heavy stench of stagnant swamp water and decay. "Do you know why this watch is frozen at 3:15? Before I could even open my mouth, he continued in a flat, bone-chilling whisper. Because that was the exact moment a sand-filled semi-truck plunged off the northern pass 10 years ago. And the driver is still trying to find his way home. With that, he spun around and strode out into the hammering rain. The automatic door slid shut behind him. I stood frozen in place, my heart pounding violently against my ribs. I looked down at the pocket watch resting on the counter, and right then, my blood ran ice cold. The watch that had just been set down began to tick. The second hand jerked forward rhythmically. 1, 2, 3, pushing relentlessly ahead. Panicking, I bolted out from behind the counter, intending to grab the watch and toss it straight into the trash can when my eyes caught the wall clock. The hour hand pointed straight at the number 2. It was 2 a.m. The exact microsecond that thought crossed my mind, a sound cut through the air, numbing my entire body. Creak. The noise came from directly behind the cash register. The small storage room, the room old Miller had strictly warned me never to let open, was slowly sliding open on its own. The heavy wooden door parted by about 10 centimeters. From that narrow gap poured a flickering, yellowish glow, like the light of a burning candle. Accompanied by it was a deeply familiar scent, the aroma of white chrysanthemums and burning incense, the kind of scent typically used in rural funeral parlors. I stood rooted to the spot, my legs feeling as heavy as lead, unable to lift a single foot. Rule number 3 echoed clearly in my mind. If the storage room opens by itself at night, your only option is to pull down the main shutter, turn off the lights, and crawl under the desk. But sheer curiosity, fueled by a terror that an intruder might be hiding inside, overpowered my common sense. Swallowing hard past my dry, aching throat, my trembling hand reached for a heavy-duty flashlight under the counter. I crept step by step toward the half-open door. Each footstep echoed heavily on the tile floor, sounding unnaturally loud in the dead of night. Reaching out, I gave the door a gentle push. It slid completely open. What met my eyes was not stacks of cardboard boxes holding motor oil, coolant, or push brooms like I saw during the day. The storage room had expanded to triple its normal size. It was a cavernous, empty space lined with old white plaster walls peeled into massive yellowed sheets. Right in the center of the vacant room sat a small wooden table. Resting on it was an oval-shaped mirror with a bronze frame, and right in front of the mirror sat a woman, her back turned entirely toward me. She wore a pristine white wedding dress, but the tail of the gown was stained heavily with mud and torn into ragged shreds. Long, tangled black hair spilled over her shoulders. In front of her, reflected in the mirror, was something impossible. Instead of reflecting the back of the storage room, the mirror showed a foggy nighttime highway, the exact northern pass, where the accident had taken place 10 years ago. My jaw dropped as I opened my mouth to ask who she was and how she got in, when suddenly the woman's figure in the room twitched. She didn't turn around to look at me. Instead, inside the glass, her reflection slowly lifted its head, two milky white, blank eyes staring straight at the angle where I stood by the door. And a voice echoed directly inside my mind, freezing my thoughts to the core. "You finally found me, didn't you, Ethan?" The psychological shock sent me collapsing onto the floor. That name? She just said my name? Ethan? I had never met this woman in my life. I had moved to this town only 3 weeks ago, living entirely alone with no family, no friends. How could she possibly know my name? Just as I frantically scrambled backward on the floor, a stabbing pain suddenly erupted deep inside my brain. It felt like thousands of acupuncture needles piercing right through my cerebral cortex. Fragmented, hazy memories like frames of a corrupted film reel flooded into my mind at a dizzying speed. I saw an old red car speeding recklessly through a stormy, rainy night. The driver was a young man that face. It was me, but with shorter hair and eyes filled with absolute panic. Sitting in the passenger seat next to me was a girl in a white wedding dress, tightly clutching a bouquet of chrysanthemums, tires squealing deafeningly, headlights knocking down roadside trees, metal crashing in a deafening roar, the windshield shattering into pieces like fireworks in the dark night. And then, water, mud, suffocation, closing in as the car slowly sank into the deep abyss of the Northern Pass ravine. I gasped heavily, sweat pouring down my face as my hands clawed tightly into the floor mat. I wasn't just a casual night shift worker who happened to take this job. I was the driver from that fateful car crash 10 years ago. That accident, I had never made it out alive. My body and hers were still resting at the bottom of that freezing ravine. So what was this gas station? Who was old Miller? When I lifted my head again, the storage room had vanished. No more whitewashed walls, no more mirror. I was sitting slumped right in the corner behind the gas station counter, beneath the flickering yellow glow of the neon lights. The storage room door was tightly shut without a single gap. The wall clock pointed precisely at 3:14 a.m. There was less than a minute left until the moment of destiny. I clutched my head, an overwhelming surge of confusion mixed with blinding terror paralyzing me. If I had died 10 years ago, what was I? A ghost trapped in a loop of time? At that instant, the store doorbell rang out. Ding dong, once again. This time there was no rain or wind, just a dry, slow knocking sound tapping against the heavy glass of the front door. Trembling, I raised my head to look outside. I clutched my head, an overwhelming surge of confusion mixed with blinding terror paralyzing me. If I had died 10 years ago, what was I? A ghost trapped in a loop of time? At that instant, the store doorbell rang out. Ding dong, once again. This time there was no rain or wind, just a dry, slow knocking sound tapping against the heavy glass of the front door. Trembling, I raised my head to look outside. Standing outside the glass was none other than old Miller. The old man's face was deathly pale, his cloudy eyes staring unblinkingly at me through the window pane. He carried no umbrella, yet his clothes were completely dry. He raised a hand, gesturing for me to unlock the door. and pinned to his chest was a small yellowed plastic name tag, bearing words that made me freeze completely. Miller Shift Manager, 1984 to 1994. Old Miller had died at this very gas station 30 years ago, and every 10 years when the cycle repeated, he had to find a new replacement, a soul that had just begun to forget its own death, to hand over this ghoulish shift and keep guarding the rest, stop straddling the boundary of the underworld and the living world. His voice echoed right through the glass, not as normal sound, but ringing directly inside my consciousness. It's time to switch shifts, Ethan. Your 10 years are up. Now it's your turn to stand right here, waiting for the next traveler to drop by and remind them of their own demise. The front door automatically swung wide open. A chilling wind from the other side rushed inside, scattering receipts all over the counter. Miller stepped in, wearing a twisted, dry grin, unpinned the name tag from his own chest, and placed it right on the counter in front of me. I stared at that yellowed plastic name tag. My name was clearly carved onto it, Ethan Shift Manager. I stepped backward, my heels brushing against the storage room door. The storage room door drifted open once more, revealing the hazy space and flickering candlelight inside, where the figure in the wedding dress waited patiently. Old Miller sat down in the swivel chair behind the cash register, lit an old cigarette, closed his eyes, and quietly relished the tranquility of the dark night. I looked down at the pocket watch on the counter. The hands had just ticked over to 3:15 a.m. Outside the gas station, a car engine slowly rumbled to a life. The headlights of an automobile suddenly swept across the weathered sign, turning into the fuel pumping area and coming to a complete stop right in front of the store. The doorbell rang out with a ding-dong. Someone had just stepped inside. I lifted my head, greeting the new visitor with a flat, emotionless tone. "Good evening. Do you need help finding anything? If one night you happen to drive through quiet, deserted roads and spot a gas station glowing with light late at night, remember to keep driving. Never stop. Because you might not just be pumping gas for your car, you might be fueling eternity itself." Thank you for listening to tonight's story. May you sleep soundly. If you dare,